Hey guys, I have another personality type breakdown here today, and we're looking at Tom Cruise. So I was watching Edge of Tomorrow the other day, and I was like, I really want to know what personality type this guy is, because I that's one of my favorite movies. So we've got 8 functions and 8 positions. I've got a lot of clips to go through, so we're gonna watch video clips, and then we're gonna assign one of the 8 functions to one of the 8 positions after each video clip. And we've got a lot. We've got like almost like 9 to 10 minutes worth of clips. So I'm gonna try and be quick with my like brief introductions to the clips. So to start off, I had no idea what type Tom Cruise was. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna look at his public freakouts because that's something that you can't really fake. Because and it's like another thing. It's like okay, if you did fake a freak out, a public freak out, it's like why would you? Because it makes you look bad. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start there. I'm gonna look at his freak out on Oprah's show. I'm gonna check that out first.
First of all, thanks for coming to my Legends Ball with Katie. Was that the best fun? Was that? Yes, yes. What has happened to you? That's how I feel about it. Really? Really? Something happened to you. Something happened to you. I'm in love. No, they're literally on the edge of their seats. They're like this. No, I know what he's doing. He's processing. He's trying to figure out what he is going to tell, what he isn't going to tell. I've never seen you like that. I've never seen that. I know. We've never seen you behave this way before. I know. Have you ever felt this way?
We're back here in Hollywood making movies right now because of us. Because they believe in us and what we're doing. I'm on the phone with every studio at night. Insurance companies. Producers. And they're looking at us and using us to make their movies. We are creating thousands of jobs, you I don't ever want to see it again. Ever. And if you don't do it, you're fired. And I see you do it again, you're gone. And anyone on this crew does it. That's it. And you too, and you too, and you. Don't you ever do it again. That's it. No apologies.
All right, so after watching these, he's like, we've got Tom Cruise on Oprah's show. He's like jumping up and down on sofas and shit, and he's screaming. He's like, "Arr! I never felt this way before. I'm in love." And like all this stuff. He's like screaming. And then we have another video that I played directly after that, where he's screaming at his coworkers or people that are working on set because they're not like heeding COVID restrictions. And he's screaming. He's like, people's lives are on the line. People's livelihoods are on the line, and you guys aren't following. You're not following the guidelines, and if you don't follow the guidelines, this whole operation can get shut down. So there's 2 sides to it. There's the undermining side, and then there's which is the demonic side, according to the author of the book where I got this chart from. And then there is the daemonic side, which is like the light-bringing side. So, okay, the first video clip undermines him, and the second one does a little bit, but it is bringing light. It's bringing light to the fact that the film industry right now, in the COVID era, is really, like other industries, it's in trouble right now. So I had no problem putting that in that last slot there, extroverted feeling. I put that in the demon slash or demonic slash daemonic slot. So that tells me, okay, for starting with that outer ring, I have to look for extroverted thinking for this person's dominant function. So that should be extroverted thinking in an area of strength and pride, and then I should look for introverted thinking as a shadow to that, and that should be the opposing personality or an area of frustration and challenge. And then if I look towards introverted feeling, that should be an area of embarrassment or idealization. Okay, so those are the things that are implied by me assigning extroverted feeling to that slot because of those clips. Okay, so we're going to move on. We're going to look at more functions.
Ask, of all the different films that you've made, what was the one that changed you the most? What was the one that had a profoundly different Tom that went into it that came out the other side?
The first film I made, Taps, because I wanted to make movies my whole life. And to have that opportunity and to start out, I went to every single department and studied every aspect of filmmaking. Very formative and unique experience for me because, of course, I'd never been on a movie set where they had just one day with endless love, but I was learning all about cameras and lighting. You know, I go and also script and how movies are made. George C. Scott, Sean Penn, and you had Harold Becker who directed it, and we'd spent over a month preparing the film. They had brought us all down as young actors. I was 18. And
Wow. That's an incredible acceleration in your career from, like, I mean, a few years out of high school to suddenly doing that.
not even a few years, it was months. But I remember there was a day that I showed up where in the morning I thought, you know, my character, I want a shaved head. So I went into town, I just shaved my head. And I showed up to Harold, you know, Mr. Becker. And I said, you know, Mr. Becker, you know, I took my head off. And he was like, you know, what did you do? What did you do? I was like, what do you mean? You know,
I'm getting into character.
This is my character. I feel this is my character. It's like, and he panicked. There was a very steep learning curve for me, as you said. I was a couple of months out of, you know, but I've seen a lot of films, but I'd never made films. And I mean, you always feel pressure. I put pressure on myself. I'm very demanding on myself. I was always working as a kid. I always had jobs, you know, and even since I was 8 years old, I was working. So I just had a different viewpoint of life, I think. And I realize that now, you know, in looking at it in terms of goals. I had goals in terms of what I wanted to accomplish.
What was the goals that you had in your head at that point?
I wanted to make movies. I wanted to make movies and do it for the rest of my life. I'm constantly, you know, I'm usually shooting a movie while I'm prepping a couple of movies. I'm in post on a couple of films. Like right now, you know, I was released The Mummy, and I'm shooting Mission, and I'm a post on American Made, and I'm prep on.
Jeez, mate, you need to do more in your time. Come on.
All right, so I have no problem after this assigning extroverted thinking for his dominant function. So this entire clip, he's basically talking about how he's constantly working on something. He's been working on movies, and it's been his goal to work on movies for his entire life since he was young. And he's been working since a couple months after he got out of high school. He started learning, and he got into filmmaking right away. And he gives a story from like his first film he worked on, where, you know, he's just so practical that it actually scared someone he was working with. I think it was the director. He said he just shaved off all his hair because he was like, you know what, I think my character would have a bald head, so I just shaved off all my hair. And the director freaked out. Okay, and at this point we've got 2 out of 4 on this outer ring. Okay, so if we build strong evidence for the functions that are on this outer ring, then we can say, all right, this person is an extroverted thinker. Okay, or this person's likely to be an extroverted thinker based on these video clips. So we have to connect right now extroverted thinking and extroverted feeling. They're not connected on this ring. So we want to build some connections here. So we're looking for introverted feeling in an area of embarrassment or idealization, or we're looking for introverted thinking as an area of frustration and challenge.
You know, I believe people are basically good, and that you see what they do to themselves, and that, you know, when he finally had that realization as a father, as a man, what his life, what he created for his life, it was, you know, it's tragic, and I felt for him very, very much. You know, he's my father. I loved him, most definitely.
And you were reconciled?
Absolutely.
You were?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel no... I've reconciled with him. Yeah. I've never met normal, you know. Every person that I meet, they have a story to tell. They have some adventure and some part of life that is extraordinary in some way. So I don't know what this normal is, that I think that people are individuals and very unique and very special. So you could say, well, you know, but normal, I don't.
Would you regard your life?
Yeah, I would. I like marriage. I like relationships. Yeah. I enjoy that, you know, with a woman, having that dynamic. It's very beautiful and sacred, and I want that.
Okay, so for introverted feeling, I think it's very easy after watching those clips to make a strong case for idealized introverted feeling. So he's saying, okay, you know, everybody's an individual. I firmly believe that there aren't any normal people. You should look into everyone. He forgave his estranged father who like left him when he was a kid, and they never talked to him until like right before he was on his deathbed. And what do you say? He reconciled with him, and then there's other interviews where he does this more. But there's a lot of introverted feeling idealization in in his relationships and his marriages, which he talks about at the end of like the introverted feeling clips that I played.
At this stage in your life, could you be with someone who doesn't have an interest?
You know, Scientology is something that you don't understand. It's like you could be a Christian and be a Scientologist.
It's very impressive to listen to you because clearly you've done the homework and you know the subject.
And you should. And you should do that also, because just knowing people who are on Ritalin isn't enough. I've never agreed with psychiatry, ever. Before I was a Scientologist, I never agreed with psychiatry. And then when I started studying the history of psychiatry, I started realizing more and more why I didn't agree with psychiatry. And I know that psychiatry is a pseudoscience. Do you know what Adderall is? Do you know Ritalin? Do you know now that Ritalin is a street drug? Do you understand that?
The difference is this was not against her will, though. But this wasn't against Brooke's will.
Matt, I'm asking you a question.
I understand there's abuse of all of these things.
No, you see, here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do.
This part was really crazy to me, the introverted thinking clips, because okay, what does it say in the chart? It says that the opposing personality would be an area of frustration and challenge. So basically, Tom Cruise, if you watch interviews with him, he gets into all these they're not shouting matches because he's not raising his voice at people, but he gets really terse and he gets really oppositional towards people on the subject of Scientology in general, but more specifically, he gets into these really like nitpicky arguments about psychiatry and psychiatric medication. So he's sitting there with Matt Lauer and he's telling him, he's like, the interviewer, he's sitting there and he's telling him, he's like, you don't understand what I know. If you knew what I knew about Ritalin and psychiatry, then you would understand. But like, don't talk about it because you don't understand it. And it's like, it's really weird because it's clear evidence for me, at least, for the shadow side of dominant extroverted thinking, this very strange and shadowy introverted thinking. All right, so now that we've completed this outer ring, I can say that, okay, likely we have an extroverted thinker here. So what that tells us is we have to look for an auxiliary function that's either introverted sensing or introverted intuition, and that would match up with the father in this case attitude here. So we would say that we have to look for either one of these functions in an area of fostering and protecting. Okay, so just to clarify, we're looking for now evidence of introverted sensing or introverted intuition as an auxiliary function, and we're looking at the inner ring here.
Have you ever been woozy at altitude?
No, but I fly. I'm a pilot, and I was one time we were flying to Colorado, and I was flying this airplane that we had to go on oxygen, and winds were better at a higher altitude, so we climbed up, and I realized that we couldn't stay at that altitude if on oxygen. I had to descend because I didn't have enough oxygen. So I had a passenger in the back, so we figured out, me and the co-pilot, that if we turned the oxygen off in the back guy, that we could make it at this altitude. So it wasn't dangerous or anything,
Now, what happened when you turned his oxygen off?
He was very quiet. He felt... He fell asleep. He fell asleep. He slept the whole way.
Well, but
he's the kind of guy you wanted to have him sleep the whole way. It's like just.
But honestly, looking at it from another direction, isn't that attempted manslaughter? You just turn a guy's oxygen off? You're lucky you're not doing time, for the love of God.
All right, so now we have this clip on the David Letterman show where Tom Cruise talks about shutting off the oxygen for a passenger in a plane that he's flying, and he laughs like maniacally at it. So this was clear for me. This was clear to associate this with the attitude of the trickster. So this clip goes to the attitude of the trickster, which is an area of manipulation and paradox. So it says it's mischievous. So normally, like if you know a dominant introverted sensor, they normally like to augment or set up the environment so that people's experiences are positive as opposed to like potentially dangerous. So for example, like, I don't know, making the temperature in the room just right, or like, I don't know, preparing food or whatever it is. It's definitely not turning off the oxygen so that person passes out unknowingly in a plane. That's definitely some horrible introverted sensing, and I would associate that with the trickster.
You know, I was someone who really, you know, wanted to have an adventure and do extreme things. You know, I was climb trees in the middle of the, you know, and the wind is blowing, and I used to write skits as a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is it important to do that stuff physically?
Well, you look at it. You're not going to get that footage in any other kind of film. You don't get shots like that, you know, and we had to camp out there to get the shots that we got. We were in Colombia. Basically, we had to carry the fuel with us, and Doug and I, you know, we had tents set up and we slept out there to just get it was guerrilla filmmaking.
So while the trickster is the shadow side of sensing, in this case we have the child, or puer, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I don't know, it's Latin, which is like, it's the area of immaturity and play. And in this clip, we have Tom Cruise, and he's talking about like what he liked to do as a kid. Like he liked to go on adventures and things like that, and like he still does it in his filmmaking. And there's other interviews with him where he talks about how he likes to fly planes and he likes to like drive race cars and stuff. So I'm going to say that's pretty strong evidence for this attitude being associated with extroverted sensing. I thought it was interesting that he talked about his childhood when he brought it up too. Okay, so this means we have 2 more functions to assign before we complete this inner ring. So we've got introverted intuition in an area of fostering and protecting, and then we have the shadow side to that we can look for. So I'm going to play one more clip. So I'm not going to find both of these. I'm just going to find one of them.
There is a sociopath, which means that, you know, there's a connection there that's still rather loose. It's not like the rest of us. But he doesn't see himself as being that at all, does he? I mean, he argues with the cabbie about, you know, the rights of his job. I get rid of scum, he says. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You know, you look at people like that, you've got to almost not listen to what they're saying necessarily, but look at what do they create in the environment. You know, if they're a business, what are their products in life? Are they wreaking chaos, or are they bringing sanity? And it's definitely, you look at Vincent as someone who doesn't bring sanity, brings chaos. Because the nature of the story, it takes place in 10 hours, so you have to create the 40 years prior to that to inform the scenes. And finding out certain moments, when does this character become fractured? Does he become fractured? How and why? And so you create a whole background and do a lot of research. I spent 5 months working with Michael Mann, and I had weapons training. And you train, and work and structure a character. I mean, this is a character that came from Indiana, and just even it informs the choices of the kind of suit that he wears. You know, he's rough trade in a good suit. So all of that history will inform his behavior, so that when you show up and you start working, that it just happens.
So I also thought these last clips were pretty cool too, because he's not talking about sensation, he's not talking about feeling, he's not talking about thinking, it's not like an analysis. What he's doing is he's talking about the abstract things that you can perceive about characters or the storyline of a film that you don't see with your 5 senses. And I would say that this is an area of fostering and protecting, because it's almost like a small lesson in how you can develop this sense to obtain the background for a character. Like, the character is not real. You have to make the character. So he's saying, okay, you know, there's a whole timeline that you have to come up with that you just have to know. Or, you know, there's other aspects of this character that they're not directly obvious to you, that you have to be able to make up and you have to have a sense for. So I would have no problem putting that in the father slot for introverted intuition, and with that we have 7 out of the 8 functions assigned. So I didn't even bother looking for extroverted intuition in the Senex spot, or like an area of limit setting and control. I just went ahead and I was like, okay, I found 7 out of 8, so I'm going to stop watching interviews. I am pretty much satisfied here with saying that Tom Cruise is likely ENTJ. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm going to be doing another poll on Instagram to see which person I'm going to type next. It's probably going to be, I don't know, like Audrey Hepburn or Jennifer Lawrence. That's what I'm thinking for the next one. This one again was Larry Page versus Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise won by a landslide. So yeah, I also had a lot of fun watching these interviews and making the video. So let me know if this is helpful in the comments. Like I said, again, I don't give a shit what your guys' opinions are as to whether this was correct or not, because I'm not asking about that. I don't care whether you think I did this correctly. What I'm asking is, if you're trying to learn how to type people, was this helpful for you? Is this a helpful procedure for being able to take this this textbook knowledge and apply it to real life? Because that's what I really want you guys to get out of it. If you're watching this, there's plenty of books that are on the Instagram, and there's plenty of stuff that I talk about from textbooks on the channel, but can you actually take it and apply it to real life and use it to have fun? That's what I really want you guys to get out of it. So let me know in the comments if it's actually helpful.